continuar para ciclo da vida. Life cycle assessment. I think you call it ciclo da vida. Actually, if you look on life cycle assessment, it is a tool that we use. It's a tool that we use to make production lines more green, to find where I can do the best. If you look on a production line, we maybe do some sub-investment if we want to reduce the environmental impact. But if we do a life cycle assessment study, we can find where the best is to put in some money to reduce the environmental impact. And we can also compare different ideas of production. For example, if you want to drink something, you can use glasses, or you can use paper, or you can use plastics. But which is the best due to the environment? We really don't know before we have checked it. And life cycle assessment is very much about how to find the best solution due to the environment for a special production line. But it's a lot of calculation and a lot of statistics. So of course, in our case, we just will have an introduction. It can take months of work to do in one life cycle assessment. So as we said, LCA will study the environmental effects of a product during its whole life cycle, from the cradle where the raw materials are extracted from the natural resources through production and use to its grade the disposal. That is the idea. And if we look on the framework, we have to do some important things. Of course, we first have to define why are we doing this life cycle assessment? Which is my goal? And a goal, of course, differs. If I am a company, maybe I just want to learn about the life cycle. I want to have a better knowledge of what I'm doing. But if I'm an authority, I maybe would like to force the companies to reduce the greenhouse effect. You have to look on your transports or whatever it is. So it of course differs who I am. And what I have to do is of course to do a flow sheet. Of course you have probably looked on production line inside the company, but when we are looking on life cycle assessment, we also include everything in the life cycle: disposal, extraction of raw material, transport, recycling, everything. So that is the difference. But in some way you have the thinking about doing a product line, doing a flow sheet. What we normally start with is, of course, as I said, the goal and scope. After we do an inventory, we summarize all carbon dioxide emissions that you have during this whole life cycle. How much carbon is polluted during the whole life cycle, and all other things that are related to greenhouse effect as well. As for example, methane gas is 21 times stronger than carbon dioxide if we look on the greenhouse effect. And as well, halogens, halogen alkanes, have furthermore effect on the greenhouse effect. But what we do is that we evaluate everything in carbon dioxide equivalents. Then we can compare all types of emissions with carbon dioxide. And this are we doing in the inventory. And in the, we summarize all emissions and the impact assessment. Then I will do this. For example, interpreting in greenhouse effect, interpreting eutrophication or human health, and things like that. And after we do an interpretation, what does this result tell me about the life cycle? And then we see what can it be used for. It can of course be used for strategic planning. Maybe it's much better to recycle everything or combustion everything or whatever you want to do. And of course, also as well marketing. If I tell you, if you buy my car, you will have the best environmental effect of similar cars. Of course, you can use it for marketing. And as well, product development improvement. So therefore, it's common in production engineering to have green tools. Of course, you have to compare life cycle cost also, and not just life cycle assessment. But you have a direct application of this.
Professor Hans, can you give us some example of marketing strategies about life cycle in Sweden?
Yeah, actually, this is my idea to finish my.
Oh, okay.
Not today, but last time.
Okay.
If we look again on goal and scope, of course I have to think about what's the intended application. What am I doing this study for? Is it for marketing or is it for product development or what? Which is the product, who is I'm doing it for? It's of course a huge difference if I'm employed in a government or something. Why am I doing this study? And here we are the same thing again. This can also be one thing, public policy making. As I said, we have to design an initial general flow chart of the system to be studied. Boxes for every type of thing that I'm doing, boxes for transport, boxes for production, boxes for disposal, etc., all raw material extraction, etc. Impact categories we will discuss much more later on. But impact categories is things like greenhouse effect, human health, etc., etc. Of course, all type of extraction and pollutants can be evaluated to human health. And of course, as well to other environmental effects, like acidification, that has been a big problem in Sweden before. Allocation we will discuss furthermore, but some product line often produce more than one thing. Maybe produce both bottles and glasses, for an example. And how to take care of this. And of course, data quality, of course, also is very important. Depending on data quality, of course, can affect the result if we have bad quality of the data. We maybe not are sure what we have received. This is the thing that we have to start with, is to think about the functional unit. The functional unit responds to a reference flow to which all other model flows of the system are related. If this is the reference flow, of course it will be effects on all other flows. So I relate all type of emissions to this reference flow. I have to recalculate this, etc. Therefore, I have to decide which flow which has to be the reference flow, and as I also mentioned the last time, in comparative studies, the choice of the functional unit is very critical. If, for example, I am to compare two different detergents, as we also discussed, if I choose 1 kilogram as the functional flow, it can maybe be totally crazy result, but maybe this detergent is much better than this one. And then I start to calculate all types of flows in the flow sheet and the emissions. As you understand, this can be crazy. But if I choose 1 kilogram of clean laundry, then it's fair.
What you need?
Yeah, maybe, but this is maybe good enough at the moment. So if I choose 1 kilogram of clean laundry, then I will have a fair result. But if I just choose 1 kilogram of detergent, it can be completely wrong result. You will, of course, have too much of transport related to the effect, as an example. So therefore, we have to think a lot. This is, in comparative study, the most important thing. If you fail in that, everything will be crazy. For example, which is the functional unit if you compare a cup made of plastics, which you use one time, and a cup made of glass, which you use many times? Think about that. What shall we choose? As the functional unit. If I shall compare plastics cups with glass cups, what shall I choose as the functional unit? Weight. Why? Just one idea. What is the function? Drinking. The function is drinking. Volume, but it's enough with volume.
I don't think so, because they can have the same volume.
But we use the glass many times, and the plastic cup just one time. If I choose 100 milliliters, I think the plastic cups for sure will win. But this is not fair to the glass that we can use a lot of times. So I think we have to add something more than the volume. Any ideas? Maybe 1,000 drinking times. 1,000 drinking times. 1,000 drinking times. Then you will use maybe 1,000 plastic cups. And maybe 2 glasses.
But in other side, you need to clean it.
Exactly. But this has to be involved. The cleaning of the glass has to be involved. 100, if you're drinking 1,000 times, you have 500 times of washing, which of course you have to include. You have to include 500 washing times if you know that, but of course you have to know how, for a long time you use the glass. 500 washing times and these 100 plastic cups. And you have to know what you're doing with the plastic cups. Are they used for any energy recovery or recycling, or are they sent to a landfill? And as well the same for the glasses. Then you get a fair composition. And of course, if you have energy recovery, you have to include how much electricity will these plastic cups create, etc., etc. So as you understand, it's complex to do a life cycle assessment, but it can create interesting results. If I want to do a more green living, or if I am a producer, as a producer, if I'm a plastic producer, and if I see plastic is the best if I do energy recovery, but the worst if we have landfill. Then of course the plastic producer may be forced, you have to increase the level of recycling or something else to get my product to be more clean.
If you increase the level, you can see the workers' health too. What is the best for the worst situation for the workers?
Exactly.
To recover plastic or to work in a laundry?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's very difficult to decide about it.
Yes, it's difficult. Some things are difficult, but due to the emissions, they have created numbers, as we will see. So you have carbon dioxide pollution has a number for human health, has a number for greenhouse effect, and so on. Every pollution has that.
I remember the table.
Like if you have too high level of carbon dioxide inside here, we would have a bad working environment, and as well greenhouse effect. So it's not just one thing, that it affects many things. Which is the functional unit of a bottle made of glass compared with a bottle made of plastics? What do we say?
I think it's very similar.
No, it's very similar. You have to think in the same way. Of course, you have to think how many times we can use it to. A floor made of wood compared with a floor made of PVC. Square meter. Oh, and as well, of course, the lifetime. 5 years and square meter. Maybe the wooden floor have to be treated one time during that time, or something like that. Of course, you know that we know. If we look on a T-shirt, if you have a synthetic t-shirt made of polyester and a t-shirt made of cotton. A lifetime. And maybe how often I have to wash it to stay without odor or something. Things like that. Lifetime, of course, is important. Drying hands. Of course, can compare as well my hands if I use this blowing machine or if I use paper. Which is the most environmental friendly?
Paper is the worst case.
So as you see, you can think about a lot of things concerning products. And I think that you can take 5 minutes to discuss this. We have an, let's see if I can get it. Ejercicio, ciclo de vida. But this is not PDF form. Será no sentido horário. Is it possible to read, or is it not read? No. Maybe we can make it bigger. That. Soft drink packaging, as we already discussed. But light bulbs. Think about light bulbs. What shall we choose as a functional unit?
Consumption of power.
Hmm?
Consumption of power.
Consumption of power is of course important, but that's not the main function. The function is lifetime and as well lumen.
Lumen.
Alltså lumen per square meter and lifetime. We have always to think about what is the function. Of course we knew that the low energy lamps produce much less, but we don't know. Of course, probably the production cost is less, but for example, maybe it's you use a lot of earth metals, a lot of things to produce those modern LED lamps. I haven't seen an LCA study, but we really don't know that if it is critical with the energy consumption or not. Maybe it could be something else. Maybe you use a lot of energy when you extract those earth metals. As an example, it can be possible at least. And so we have to, of course, to choose how much light is it that we receive from this lamp, and when does we have to shift the lamp. So it's similar thinking as the plastic cups concerning lifetime. Of course, you have to change the LED lamps more seldom than the older types of lamps. If we look on people, transportation, what shall we think? That this is how we do, but which is the function?
Capacity. Emission per person.
This is some emissions, yeah. But what is the function? The function is transporting people. People and people kilometer, example. 100 people and 10 kilometers. So I compare 100 people and 10 kilometers. Then I compare bus or train or underground. So I have to focus on the right thing. As you see, it seems to be very easy, but we have to think a little bit more deeper than you first think. So therefore the functional unit is very, very important. I cannot start to think about emissions or energy or things like that. Just if I look on a power plant, then I can talk about this power plant produces 1,000 megawatt. And the other does the same. Then I can look how much emissions will they produce, how much raw material, how much of natural resources am I using. So the function is critical. If you look on goods transportation, what do you think? What shall I choose? What's the function of goods transportation?
Transport products.
Transport products, yeah.
Yes.
The bigger capacity.
Weight.
Yeah, weight kilometer, for example. Mass kilometer. We could talk about, today maybe we could talk about reading. Shall I have newspaper or shall I have iPad? Which is the best? Reading. So you have a lot of different things. Wallpaper or paint. Decoration on woods, 1 square meter and year. So very often we have to include lifetime, often kilometers. Waste management options for discarded cardboard. In this case, I think we have to choose one cardboard and to think about the opportunities recycling or energy recovery or things like that. Have you taken the idea of the concept of functional unit? I think you have, therefore I understand it. Even it seems to be a simple subject, it's other things to think about. Normally not heavy math. Of course we have to use Excel carefully. It's very easy to do wrong calculations. So we have to, of course, to be careful when we calculate all the streams. But the functional unit design. This stream design, for example, if we have 1,000 plastic cups, Then we say, then it is, the output is 10,000 drinking times. Then we have the 10,000 used plastic box here. And in this case you have to have them to be washed. And then we include it. And then we include the emissions from the production of the plastic, the emission from the production of the glass, the emissions if we use it for energy recovery, and the emissions from the washing, and even before the extraction of the crude oil, the polymerization of the crude oil, down the whole cycle. And the same for the glass. Extraction of sand, caustic soda, and everything. Then we can start to calculate, and then we can compare it fair if I choose a good functional unit. But if I choose a bad functional unit, 1 kilogram, for sure that it will have another result. Do you survive with the English?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not used with a Swedish accent, probably.
Excuse me, Professor. Can you use the microphone?
Yeah.
Because microphone is...
It's not high enough. Oh. Problem is that I have to brag too. But I try.
Yes.
I try my best. Here shall we discuss about one other problem. Maybe we can have it a little bit bigger. What about waste management? Is it very much discussed in Rio Grande do Norte? Waste management.
Yeah, we start a lot to talk about this.
This is actually a question related to recycling. If we look on newsprint that we use for producing newspaper. Newsprint is produced from mechanical pulp and or recycled newsprint. Mineral fillers are also added. We use groundwood, and from that we produce pulp. Have you studied anything about paper production, or is it something that is almost new? You don't know so much. No.
It's almost new for us.
Who studied that? Is it just the chemical or the mechanical or so?
So I don't think so, alright.
Some mechanical engineers can choose to study paper production, but of course it differs in different universities. So I will not go in details on that.
It's not our case.
No, okay. But I will in this case, and this is also of course a very general thing, we shall compare recycling and energy recovery from used newspaper. which is the most fair due to environment. And this is a goal definition. National authorities are working to prepare regulation on waste management and recycling for a number of different products. This is actually the case here in Rio Grande do Norte at the moment. For New Spring, 2 waste management options have been identified as environmentally better than others: recycling and incineration with energy recovery. Different actors such as waste management companies, newsprint producers, environmentalists argue for either of the options, largely with environmental arguments. So actually, it's you notice the same discussion here. Oh, we have to recycle, and the other says, no, this we can use it for. We can reduce the oil consumption if we use this paper for combustion and producing electricity instead. And who has the right? We do not know. But there we can use you guys if you are being a specialist in life cycle assessment. So now the authority comes to you, the LCA analyst, to get an objective and quantitative environmental assessment of the 2 options. Choose for yourself in which country to place the study. North of Brazil. For sure. Formulate the questions of the commissioner as precisely as possible. Think about that you are the guy sitting in the environmental department in the government of Rio Grande do Norte. Formulate the question of the commissioner as precise as possible. You are the person in charge to take the decision. You send it to the governor in Rio Grande do Norte. We shall recycle everything, or we shall send everything to energy recovery. Of course, the commissioner has to define the question to ask the LCA analyst what he wants to get an answer on. Oh, any ideas? Do we understand the idea? Actually, the authority here want to know if it's best to recycle or if it's best to send to energy recovery due to the environment. And we cannot just use emotional arguments. Of course, we have to use a scientific argument. It's very often just emotional argument used when we talk about sustainable waste management. Formulate the question of the commissioner as precisely as possible.
Quanto de poluente vai produzir por quilowatt? Se a gente vai ter uma fonte que possa terminar aqui isso, quando o nível de integração é reciclado.
Eu achei que vai ser o ABC para a gente argumentar a forma da lei. Realmente. Fala aí.
Something that maybe please analyze the two options.
Which is the best cost benefit?
Please analyze the two options of waste management, recycling or energy recovery due to all important environmental effects. Something like that for the whole life cycle. For the whole life cycle, for newspapers. Maybe it's 4 or I'm not quite sure. Now you do what?
I think in a first look, in a first idea, it's better to recycle the newspaper. I'm
But-
wrong. Am I wrong?
This is very dangerous
Yeah.
to
It's
decide
very-
to decide in advance. What we have to think about is, for example, we can discuss it like flow sheet. If we do combustion, we will produce electricity. What will we avoid? Then we will avoid some other electricity production. And if this other electricity production is done from crude oil, you avoid extraction of crude oil and you avoid a lot of emissions, a lot of carbon greenhouse effect. So you have to think about what will you do instead. You have to have completely comparable systems. So in this system, when you have this, you don't have to have any extra electricity production. But to be fair to this system, the other system that recycles has to produce the electricity by some other way. If it is hydropower or eolic, probably it's like you said. But we have to know how is this electricity produced. If it's crude oil, you are probably wrong. But if it's eolic, I think you are right. So it's more complex.
Yeah. You need to look for the natural resource.
Exactly. In two comparable systems that are truly comparable. If not comparable, it will fail. So it's very easy to do like this, to think, of course, we use it more and more again, and it's crazy combustion. It's very easy to do, to not use scientific arguments. And we can trust on emotional arguments in relations, but maybe not in engineering.
You are right.
rápida, multiplicações.
Now, draw a flow chart showing what processes and transportation activities need to be modeled in order to answer the question. Try not to make the flow chart too full of details at this stage. You can fill in details later during the inventory analysis. Think about whether there are parts of the life cycle that can be omitted. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now we shall think about the flow chart.
Can you explain better about the last step? Thinking about whether there are parts of life cycle.
Yeah, I will discuss that when we do the flow chart. Maybe there are some parts that are completely equal in the two
Okay,
cases.
you can eliminate.
And then if they're completely equal, there can be a black box and we can get rid of.
For example,
Some transports.
Transport.
So that's an example. So we have recycling. And energy. Recovery. In both cases, of course, we have to produce newsprint. The newsprint go to use. There we have, of course, first of all, we have the newspaper production. Where we have producing the paper, the newspaper, newsprint. And we have the newspaper. And we have the use, I'm going, and we have transport. And we have the use. I'm reading the newspaper. And then, what am I doing? Some guys collected the papers, and if you are recycling, I send it back to the newsprint production. And here I have a transport. I must have some pulp. I must have some wood. And this is extracted from the forest in some way. And of course we have a lot of transports. Something like that. Forest, wood, pulp, newsprint production, this can be of course in the same place. But not, we don't want to. We have the production of the newspaper, we are reading it, and some guys are collecting it and recycling it. or maybe it goes up here. What's the difference in the other case? A lot of things is the same. Forest, transport, wood, transport, transport, newspaper, transport, news, electricity. You can see directly that maybe we don't can recycle everything, but say that we can recycle 80%, 75. Then of course we will have less input here. Is this fair? Are those the both product system identical? We can say that is 1 kilogram here. We choose 1 kilogram of produced newspaper. Say it's 1 kilogram. In both cases we produce 1 kilogram. This system produces not just 1 kilogram of newsprint, it produces also some kilowatt hours of electricity. So here we could do some allocation, say that so much of the paper or electricity and so much is for newsprint. But what we normally do is that we expand the system to make them comparable. You have an output of electricity, some emissions, and some natural resources. And this has to be the same as this. We can easily calculate how much electricity it will be there. And then I have to, now I can compare those two systems. Both are producing the same amount of electricity. Both are producing 1 kilogram of newsprint. So, of course, this will emit more transports. But you have transport here that this maybe not have. Those transports are of course less. But here you have some that are equal, that you maybe could skip. This system of course have to have a higher input of forest. But here, of course, you have to see how much input of natural resources you have. So what you do in the inventory is that you all emissions that are created you summarize, and all inputs of water, electricity, etc. Of course, you use. Of course, this recycling process, of course, also need energy. So you have transport and you have recycling process. So you have inputs of use of natural resources, electricity, water, energy, raw material. And we have a lot of emissions. And the same here. And we cannot be sure before you have done the study. Think about whether the parts of the life that can be omitted. Then you can see. Here we have a lot that is the same. Almost, I think. Yeah, probably this part is the same. Think so. You can think about it a little bit deeper, but here you have pulp.
It's almost the same.
The same. You have to have the same amount of pulp to produce the same amount of newspaper and the same use. It's often. So this, if I just want to compare this and this, of course, if you have the same result, I can avoid 1 month of work. So what you see here, that you have a much higher flows here, of course. And you have to think about the recycling process. How much does it cost due to environment? And you have to think about the electricity. How much of input on natural resources am I needed here? And how much emission is it greater? And as well here. But here I don't need this, instead I have this.
But in the second case, energy recovery, you need to input new reforest. Okay?
Exactly.
You need to think in a space to
yeah,
have
exactly. Exactly.
some soil to be prepared to replant.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a large process to have a continuous.
We have to replant and we have to think about the space that has to be used. Maybe it would be smarter to recycle and to maybe use wooden material for electricity.
It is way to think. In one side you have a second product, electricity,
Yeah.
but you need to think in a natural resource.
Exactly.
And in other case, you don't have, for example, natural resource input in the process, but you have nothing in the end. You need more energy to recycle paper.
Yeah.
It's almost,
I think we have, but I think we have to put number to be sure.
yeah.
But
But general, is this the idea? Generally, is this the idea?
Yeah, I think so. So you have to have a higher cost of production of space. You have, of course, you have to take out more wood, higher transports, higher emissions. But when after you have received the pulp, then we have the same. But here you also have the recycling unit. Of course, you have maybe to wash out all the ink and things like that. And maybe you have a lot of small transports to receive all the recycling. But this is the case. It's like that. We have to think about the land use, the transports, how much oil. In this case, of course, you have much more of oil input during here. Diesel. You can calculate all the emissions, all the energy used. So you will have a summary, oil, electricity, wood, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, human health, as a result. Then I can say to the commissioner, due to our calculation, we have shown that recycling creates less greenhouse effect, as an example, if it is like that. So please take your decision, and in our state, we have to increase the amount of recycling. It's a strategic background. They do this calculation, and down the commissioner in the government have a strategic background for his decision.